I just really can't help myself. I got so overwhelmed by emotions after finishing the first arc of Arcane Season 2 that I have to make this video and share my fresh impressions. First of all, I'd like to briefly admire the quality of animation, because animation here is bizarrely good. It's like watching Across the Spider-Verse, but on steroids, believe me or not. Animation has gotten smoother compared to Season 1 while retaining the style of the first season. I especially love the opening scene of the third episode. I imagine the animators had to go through nightmarish headaches in order to animate scenes with chemicals in Zone and the Hextech. But the result is astounding. It would be cliché to say that watching certain scenes feels like watching a good and artistically rich comic book come to life, but that's exactly how I felt. Although animation is absolutely great, I would like to focus more on writing. I only have two problems with Arc 1. My biggest gripe is that Y gave up on Jinx too easily, in my opinion. At the end of Season 1, Y was literally ready for anything to bring Powder back, feeling guilty for abandoning her little sister all these painful years ago. But at the start of Season 2, she is, all of a sudden, confident that Powder is gone and agrees to join Caitlyn's Suicide Squad and hunt for Jinx. Y agrees that Jinx should be eliminated. All after Jinx sends a missile towards the council building in Piltover. As if Y didn't know that Jinx worked for Silco and killed lots of people. Y perfectly knew that Jinx committed an attack on Piltover to steal one of Hextech marbles, so she was aware of what Jinx was capable of. But after this one attack at the end of Season 1, Y gives up on saving her little sister, gives up on her only remaining family. But, as the third episode shows us, she still didn't completely lose hope, as Y doesn't let Caitlyn to shoot Jinx, while Caitlyn has a perfect chance to end this looming conflict between the cities by killing Jinx. And speaking of Jinx, she is the only character that has only my sympathies. Jinx is just a victim of terrible circumstances. Everything bad that Jinx does is absolutely not her fault. Jinx lost her parents when she was a little child. When she wasn't much older, she was abandoned by her sister for just trying to help. Yes, Powder's intervention killed Vander, Milo and Clegger, but she only tried to help. Help the way she could help. And then Jinx spent years with Silco, growing up in this criminal environment where Silco carefully nourishes all Jinx's negative traits. Jinx had no chance to not be a psychopath in a world that completely turned its back on her. I suddenly loved the chaotic tandem of Jinx and Civica, something that I didn't see coming before. Both Civica and Jinx are united by the loss of Silco. Silco's death implies that the dream of the United Nation of Zone dies with him, because other criminal bosses would rather surrender Jinx to Piltover than fight against the upper city. The fight between Jinx and Y demonstrated that Jinx is a freaking beast. She fights like a blue monster. She freaking fights Y with her bare fists, while Y is wearing Hextech powered gloves. And the fight was almost equal. Jinx is an extremely skilled fighter and practically a technical genius, albeit she never had any formal education previously. The second issue that I want to address is that I wish we saw Caitlyn's squad in action. At the end of Season 1, Caitlyn gathers this really badass team to go on a super dangerous mission to Zone, and then they have just one scene together. The scene where they almost caught Jinx. After that, Y and Caitlyn split with their teammates, and we never see the Suicide Squad in action again. Speaking of this scene, it was so well written and animated that I almost felt as sick as Jinx felt when the chemical gas filled the room. The scene really felt like something borrowed from a claustrophobic horror film. Perhaps my favorite scene from Season 2 so far. And speaking of horror, I really like this idea that Hextech has evolved into this terrifying, intelligent, eldritch creature. This is exactly what Heimerdinger was so afraid of in the first season. It made Arcane feel like Game of Thrones, to be honest. While Piltover and Zone are preparing to fight each other in a brutal confrontation, this Hextech monster is slowly evolving and getting more and more powerful and more dangerous deep beneath Piltover. It's really like White Walkers from Game of Thrones. Watching Jace do scientific stuff instead of trying to oust someone from the council was really nice. And of course I felt absolutely ecstatic when Vi and Caitlyn finally kissed. I was waiting for this moment since they first met, and the moment didn't disappoint me at all, that's for certain. The Black Rose side plot was honestly my least favorite, because I really don't care much for Noxus and for the Medarda family, even for Ambassador Medarda. My biggest concern is that there are only 6 episodes left to comfortably wrap up the whole story and make the ending satisfying for each and every character. Of course I'd rather have 3 seasons, but since the story was in production for almost a decade, I'm sure we'll get a satisfying conclusion. Arcane has been a really satisfying show so far. What do you think of the first act? Share your opinion and see you one of these days.